It was 7:30 inches the morning, a hospital in Pittsburgh, and Mario Lemieux was finishing his 20-second radiation treatment for cancer. By that evening, he was on the ice in Philadelphia, scoring a goal to a standing ovation from the same fans who had spent years booing him. That is not a sports story. That is something else entirely. And somehow, it's not even the most remarkable comeback on this list. Hockey is built on toughness, on the idea that you get back up, that you play through it, that whatever the game takes from you, you find a way to give it back. But some returns go beyond toughness. Some returns are about something deeper, about identity, about defiance, about a refusal to let the thing you love be taken from you by injury, illness. And we're starting with the greatest comeback in NHL history that somehow never gets the credit it deserves. Mario Lemieux, the cancer. January 12, 1993. Mario Lemieux was 27 years old. He was in the middle of one of the best seasons any player had ever produced, 104 points in just 40 games. And he was, by consensus, the best player on earth. He had already won 2 consecutive Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He had already won multiple scoring titles. He was the kind of player that makes you feel lucky to be alive at the same time as him. And then, the Penguins announced that a walnut-sized lump that had been on his neck for 18 months, a lump that had been ignored, minimized, explained away, was cancer, Hodgkin's lymphoma, an enlarged lymph node removed from his neck. Lemieux began radiation therapy in early February, and the entire process included 22 treatments. The last one came the morning of March 2, 1993, at 7:30 a.m. 22 radiation sessions. Hair loss, skin burns, arm weakness, fatigue so severe that most patients spend days in bed after each treatment. And then Lemieux finished his treatment, then took a plane to Philadelphia to meet the team. That same day, that same night, the Spectrum in Philadelphia, the most hostile building in the Eastern Conference for a Pittsburgh Penguin. At 3:29 of the period, Lemieux set up Kevin Stevens for a power play goal that tied the game. And then he scored one himself. After missing 23 games and hours after his final radiation treatment for cancer, Lemieux had 2 points and led the Penguins with 5 shots on goal. And the Flyers fans, the people who had booed this man every time he set foot in their building, gave him a standing ovation. Rod Brind'Amour, who was on the Philadelphia side that night, watched from across the ice. If he really wanted to go out there and score every shift, he could. He kinda took it easy sometimes, and then when the game got going and he needed to score, he cranked it up. He probably wasn't feeling great, but you didn't really notice it. What followed was perhaps the most extraordinary 6-week stretch in the history of professional sports. Lemieux scored 30 goals and notched 26 assists in the final 6 weeks of the regular season. His remarkable comeback overlapped with a 1-7 game winning streak for the Penguins, an NHL record that still stands to this day. He won the Art Ross Trophy. He won the Hart Trophy. He finished with 160 points in 60 games, a rate of production so absurd that the only appropriate response is silence. He had cancer. He had radiation treatments every weekday for 4 weeks, and he still won the scoring title by 12 points. Mario's cancer diagnosis inspired him to create the Mario Lemieux Foundation that same year, so patients and families facing the same frightening battle would have the best care possible. 30 years later, that foundation has gifted over $37 million to cancer research and patient care, established dozens of children's playrooms and hospitals, and helped over 1.5 million patients and families. The comeback on the ice was extraordinary. What he built off, it was something else entirely. Cam Neely, 50 goals on a broken. If Mario Lemieux's comeback is the greatest ever told, then Cam Neely's is the greatest nobody tells at all. Neely was 25 years old. He had just completed back-to-back 5-0 goal seasons for the Boston Bruins. He was, by every measure, the most complete power winger in the game, a man who could score 50 and fight the toughest players on the same shift. Then came Game 3 of the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals. Pittsburgh Penguins defenseman Ulf Samuelsson delivered a hit to Neely's thigh and knee that the hockey world would argue about for decades. Compounding the situation was the fact that Cam developed myositis ossificans in the injured area. The muscle literally began turning to bone. The injury kept him out of all but 22 games over the next 2 seasons. Think about what that means. 22 games in 2 full seasons. A player who had been one of the best right wings on the planet was suddenly spending more time in a rehabilitation room than on a hockey rink. Neely explained the road back. Part of my quad solidified. starting turning into bone, so they had to treat it like a broken bone. I was in a straight leg brace for 2 months. I was in this continuous passive motion machine for 3 weeks for 23 hours a day. I lived in the training room, which sucked. But I was like, I'll do whatever you guys say I have to do to get back. His line mate Adam Oates had never seen Neely play healthy. Ray Borg kept telling him, just wait until you see him. You have no idea what's coming. In the 1993-94 season, Cam Neely finally showed Oates and the rest of the hockey world exactly what Bork had been talking about. He scored his 50th goal of the season in his 44th game. Only Wayne Gretzky has scored 50 goals in fewer games. He was doing it on a knee that required him to sit out games throughout the season just to manage the pain. He was doing it on a hip that was quietly deteriorating with every shift he played. He was doing it on borrowed time, and he knew it. I looked at it as, I got 50 goals, which is a measure goal scorers make for a hockey season. If I can get 50, then it's an accomplishment. I think the fact that I got 50 inches 44, and I don't think I set my mind on scoring 60. He retired 3 seasons later at 31. A career cut short by a hit. A comeback that produced one of the most remarkable individual seasons in franchise history. The Bill Masterton Trophy, awarded to the player who best exemplifies perseverance and dedication to hockey, was given to Cam Neely that year. He earned it more than anyone. Gordie Howe, the comeback at 45 and 51. Now let's go back even further. Because no list of great comebacks is complete without the man who came back twice in a way that defied not just hockey logic but basic human biology, Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey. At 45 years old, 45 Howe announced he was returning to professional hockey after 4 years away from the game, joining the Houston Aeros of the World Hockey Association. His reason wasn't about unfinished business. It wasn't about proving something to the league. It was simpler and more human than that. He wanted to play with his sons. Marty and Mark Howe were both in the Aeros system, and Gordie Howe decided, at 45, that fulfilling that dream was worth lacing up again. He scored 21 seconds into his first exhibition game. The assist came from Mark. In his regular season debut, he assisted on 3 goals and immediately told reporters he had stayed out too long on one shift in the third period. I thought I was going to die, he said. But he kept going. He played 4 seasons in the WHA, won the league MVP, and earned 4 All-Star selections against players born the same year he had first retired. And then, because once apparently wasn't enough, when the Hartford Whalers were absorbed into the NHL in 1997, Gordie Howe came back to the league he had left in 1971. He was 51 years old. He played 80 regular season games. He scored 15 goals. He appeared in the All-Star game alongside an 18-year-old named Wayne Gretzky, the oldest player in NHL history, playing alongside the player who would break nearly every record he set on the same ice. At the same time, what all of them share. These men are separated by decades. By the nature of their absences, injury, illness, retirement, personal choice, by the teams they played for and the eras they inhabited, but they share something that no trophy and no statistic can fully capture. They refuse to accept that the game was finished with them. Lemieux boarded a plane to Philadelphia hours after his last radiation treatment because that's who he was. Not because anyone asked him to. Not because the Penguins needed him that night specifically, but because refusing to play was not something that was available to him as an option. Neely spent 3 years in a rehabilitation room going through procedures most people can't even imagine enduring a machine running his leg for 23 hours a day because somewhere in the back of his mind, 50 goals was still possible. And he was right. Orr played on a knee so damaged that every shift was borrowed time. Because there was one more tournament, one more chance to be Bobby Orr in front of the hockey world. And Gordie Howe, at 45 years old, got on the ice with his sons and scored 21 seconds into his first game back, because some dreams are worth coming back from retirement for. The greatest comeback nobody talks about is the one that happened on March 2, 1993, in Philadelphia, of all places. A 27-year-old cancer patient finished his last radiation treatment at 7:30 inches the morning, got on a plane, and scored a goal that night to a standing ovation from people who had spent years wanting him to fail. But every comeback on this list deserves to be remembered. Cam Neely on a body that was slowly turning against him. Bobby Orr on a knee that should have ended everything. Guy Lafleur scoring on Roy under his own retired number. Gordie Howe at 51 on the same ice as Gretzky. And Mario Lemieux, twice showing the hockey world that toughness isn't just about playing through a hit. Sometimes it's about getting on a plane the day you finish chemotherapy and going to do the one thing you were put on this earth to do. These are the comebacks nobody talks about. Now you know.